Thanks for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Emily.
And we're passionate about holistic wellness that real people with real lives can achieve.
We see you out there striving for perfection, but we want you to know that good enough can be good enough.
Before we get started, everything we talk about in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, medication, or supplements. You're listening to episode number 17, Intro to Micronutrients. In this episode, we'll be discussing all things micronutrients, what they are, what they do, and how to get more of them.
But first, don't forget about our brand new Patreon community. It's free to join and will be the home of our show notes, discussions, and hopefully some bonus content down the road. It's a great way to get involved and show us support. We can't wait to see you over there. So Kayla, what have you been nerding out about?
I have been nerding out about the impacts of fragrance on health. If you're not a part of my mailing list, which you should be a part of my mailing list, every week I send out a very valuable email that has a bunch of information and education. It's basically, if you ever go to like someone's Instagram and you go to like their highlights and they have like tons of highlights on information and education and things like that. That's what my mailing list is. I'm not a big social media girly, so I just use my mailing list to provide very valuable content to my followers. So a couple of the weeks I was talking about fragrance and how it can impact our health, and so I was doing a ton of research around fragrance and how it can impact fertility and weight gain and cancer and lots of things. So many things. So if you are interested in learning more about fragrance, my mailing list is the place to be. And if you get on the mailing list, obviously these emails have already gone out, but if you get on the email list and you just email me back and say, hey, I'm interested in your fragrance emails, I will make sure that you get the links to those. So Emily, what about you?
So, I don't have a lot of time to be nerding out about a lot of things, but I'll tell you what I stayed up way too long looking at last night. I got on Instagram to check some stuff real quick, and you know what a sinkhole that is, and somehow I ended up on, hopefully I say her name correctly, Ilona Mars Instagram. Okay. And if you don't know who that is, she is her personality is larger than life. She is a member of the Olympic rugby team, and they took home gold.
That's awesome.
From the Olympics, and she is hilarious. She is she's currently on Dancing with the Stars, which I'm pretty ho-hum about that
I
stuff.
Know who
but
this is.
She's doing fantastic at it.
Yeah.
They did what's the girl from Encanto, the strong one? Luisa. They reenacted that dance. That's where she
awesome.
did the lifts and everything. She's wildly strong. She's quite tall. But her personality is fantastic. She's so funny. But I love that she's out here being a champion for girls. If you've been around me recently, I say all the time, we are not frail women. We're not helpless. We are strong and we're capable, and we can lift heavy things. Gosh darn it. And I just love her. She's out there. She's wearing lipstick, but she's being wildly strong and fit, and she's just really cool. I relate to her a lot as a girl who grew up on a farm and was much more buff than my my peers.
Yeah.
I really love her. She's worth your time to go see. They've been doing hilarious reels with Dancing with the Stars and stuff. So it's not really that academic. But it's what I've been nerding out on, I suppose.
You can nerd out on somebody. That's okay.
Today we're going to talk about minerals, and I am real excited about it because I think I'm about to learn a thing or two. We started writing up the script, and I was just like, this is all you, because my knowledge of this is purely rudimentary, so I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, so this episode is about micronutrients, like we mentioned at the top, and micronutrients encompass two categories, and that's vitamins and minerals. So if you ever hear someone talking about micronutrients, it's just vitamins and minerals. So let's start with vitamins. So I'll just give you a little bit of information about vitamins, and we can kind of talk about what they do, and then we'll move on to minerals. About 1% of the human body is made up of vitamins. We are able to make some of them, but not all of them. And we have two different categories of vitamins. We have fat-soluble vitamins, and we have water-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble means that we need dietary fat in order to use them. So these vitamins are A, D, E, and K. So if you ever see these vitamins in a food that doesn't have fat, chances are you're not going to be able to absorb them unless you add some fat to that. So some of these vitamins are found in vegetables, and that's a good reason to use like a cooking fat to cook them. So vitamins are the cofactors for many metabolic processes. They support tissue growth, digestion, elimination, immune function. They help prevent deficiencies and other health-related health problems. Whenever I learned this in school, they were always like, vitamins help prevent deficiencies and related health problems. So basically, what that means is vitamins help prevent health issues that occur because of vitamin deficiencies.
Oh.
So it's just kind of
circular.
It's very circular. Because it took me a while to like, what are they talking about?
Well, I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole, isn't it? But that's basically what most
Nutrition
disorders
is,
and
yeah.
issues other than bacterial and
Yeah.
viral, they're a nutritional deficiency issue.
Yes. So then moving on to minerals, about 4% of the human body is made up of minerals, and we cannot make any of them, so we have to consume them all. And the way we get minerals is through the soil, and then the soil, whenever a plant grows in the soil, it takes up some of the minerals, making some of those foods mineral rich. So minerals are calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, chloride, magnesium, iron, zinc, iodine, sulfur, cobalt, copper, manganese, and selenium. And minerals all interact together, so it's not, if you're low in one, you just supplement with the one because it might be low because of something else is high or something else is low. So I don't want anyone to think, oh, I'll just get a multi-mineral supplement and it'll fix all my mineral issues. Minerals are pretty intricately woven together with their interactions, so it's pretty important to know what you're doing with minerals.
Right. This is why we always talk about food first, is because when you have a food, they are designed to, and I'm talking whole foods, I'm talking an apple. It's going to have all of the minerals in it and the vitamins in it that interact together in the correct ratios that you need.
Yeah. So minerals act as spark plugs. They're cofactors to enzymes, regulate proper blood pH. They facilitate transfer of nutrients across cellular membrane. They maintain nerve conduction. They contract and relax muscles. They regulate tissue growth, and they provide structural and functional support. And I think this is where my favorite analogy about minerals comes in, and that's our bodies are like a car or a car battery. So if you use distilled water in a car battery, it's not going to hold any charge because there's no minerals. Minerals are what help the battery hold charge. And we're essentially the same way. Minerals are what help us hold charge. Humans are electrical beings.
Eventually you're going to tell this and it's not going to blow my mind anymore, but it still blows my mind. This is like a wild revelation to me about minerals and electricity, and I can't.
Yeah, once I connected those dots, I knew humans were electrical beings. I knew minerals were like spark plugs. But then when I heard someone say the car battery thing, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It all makes so much more sense now.
The light bulb.
Yes, and now I can't not see it. So I love sharing that with people because I think it's super helpful to understanding the importance.
It definitely creates a mindset shift.
Yeah. So this leads us to the question, how do we get more in our diets? And the answer is, as my business coach, it's simple, but it's not easy.
I hate that. I love it. I get it, but I hate it.
Yes. And it's by consuming a diverse range of nutrient-dense whole foods. The more range, the more diversity, the more nutrient-dense our whole foods are, the easier it will be to get all of these micronutrients in. So this isn't really the time to hyper-focus on quote-unquote superfoods. Diversity is really key here. We hear a lot of buzz around superfoods, but diversity is probably more important than one particular food that has a lot of micronutrients or antioxidants or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny how these superfood lists that they come out with, they're always like exotic things that are hard to get, which is, hopefully we don't go off on a tangent here. I think, we talk a lot about how like, oh, why is real food so expensive and processed food is so cheap? And I think more of a lie that we've been fed, more of a problem, is that all of the normal quote unquote foods that have been demonized by the people who do those things is more of a travesty than any of that. We can talk about acai all day long, but have you tried milk?
Yeah.
Have you had potatoes? Have you ever had an egg? Like,
yeah.
These are foods that are not just chock full of nutrition, both in the macro and the micronutrient categories. They're delicious, and they're readily available, at least where we're at in the U.S. They're everywhere. You can get them, and they're not terribly expensive. So maybe we just need to rebrand what a superfood is, because all of these things that we have access to, it's all good food. They're all super.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no such thing as a superfood.
Yes.
Like, there's no one food that if you only consume that one food, you will have everything you ever need. Actually, the argument can be made for potatoes, but I'm not, as much as I love potatoes, I'm not going to make that argument because...
That sounds restrictive.
Yes, it's very restrictive, for one. Like, can you imagine only eating... I mean, I can, but only eating potatoes for the rest of my life. But I think I would get tired of it.
Yeah.
And, what a tragedy it would be if that was all I could eat. And I couldn't enjoy ground beef or an egg or an orange or, like... There's so many different, there's such a variety, and we've talked about this in other episodes. The ancient person ate anywhere from 300 to 1,000 different foods, and now we're eating 15 to 30.
Yeah.
That's insane, and it's contributing to a lot of preventable diseases. Because we're not getting the diverse range of micronutrients.
Yeah, that fact always blows my mind too. The diversity they had in their diets. And I don't think we think that way anymore.
No.
What can I get a lot of cheap?
Or we think like what's going to give me the most bang for my buck?
Right.
I need a crap ton of acai or kale or whatever the newest superfood is because that's the healthiest food, when that doesn't really exist.
Yes.
The healthiest food is a variety of foods.
And you probably have access to them. They're probably not found in the rainforest.
Yeah. And if they are found in the rainforest, your body might not be equipped to handle them. There's something to be said for following and a true ancestral diet. So Emily and I are both white.
We're very white, I'm afraid.
So we both likely have ancestors that came from Europe, and the foods that they ate, our bodies are more equipped to digest rather than a food that an Asian American might be equipped to eat, or an African American, or even someone from like an island. Like, my body has different DNA that dictates like what I am more capable of digesting.
I think about this a lot. I think we talk about this a lot in private too, where like I'm German. I'm almost completely German. There's some Jewish roots in there. There's a smidge of Italian that I cling to for dear life, but I'm very German. And the way my body is just so chill with fatty meat and potatoes and cabbage, but I can't eat rice too many times in a row is crazy to me. Versus like somebody of an Asian ancestry that they're literally day in, day out, every meal they're eating rice. My
Or
body,
soy.
I would die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy how we're all created a little bit differently, and we adapt to the diets of our regions.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do really with like race or skin color or anything. It's literally what has been handed down to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And honoring our heritage. Like, I think that's a beautiful thing to do, is to honor our heritage.
More sauerkraut then.
More potatoes for me. So
Perfect. Everybody's happy.
So what if you're struggling to get all these micronutrients through your diet? What if you're doing all the things that you think you can do, you're eating a diverse range of foods, and you think you're just like, I just don't think I'm getting enough micronutrients.
Yeah, so the first thing I would ask is, why do you think that?
Yeah.
Why do you feel that way? Have you done a hair mineral test? Have you added all your food onto a chronometer to see, like, oh, I do know for a fact I don't get enough vitamin C or whatever? You want to work off of data, not like the whims of what you think you're getting based on like, oh, I never eat sweet potatoes, but all these other healthy people do. Like, well, maybe you don't like sweet potatoes, and maybe you're getting everything you need elsewhere. So I would definitely start with some data. Always with a caveat of like, be cautious if tracking food is not a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Always. But it can be very eye-opening to see the micronutrient breakdown and the macronutrient breakdown, but I wouldn't jump to conclusions just because you feel your diet looks a little bit different than someone else's.
I completely agree with that. I love using data, especially. So, like asking, part of my training is like asking specific questions to kind of suss out, are you eating a lot of like nutrient dense foods? I also utilize functional tests like the hair tissue mineral analysis to see like what specifically is going on in your body. So like I completely back all that. Like, have the data. Don't make assumptions that you're not getting a certain micronutrient because you're not eating the superfood.
Yes. Yeah, and then the next thing I would do is I would get on Google and look up a list of those heavy hitter foods of whatever particular micronutrient you need more of. And that's a good time to assess, like, maybe it's something you love and you just kind of forgot about it. Like, oh yeah, I used to eat this all the time and I haven't for a while. Maybe that's why I'm not getting a lot of that particular nutrient. And just add it back in. Or maybe it's something you've never tried, or like, oh gosh, I know that this particular thing has a lot of this, but it's not my favorite. Maybe there's different ways to incorporate it, like either to mask it or you just haven't prepared it right before. So there's lots of creative ways that you can be getting more of whatever you need, no matter what you need.
Mm-hmm. This is huge. Like, a lot of times we forget how powerful certain foods can be. So looking that up and saying, like, I know I want a lot of vitamin C, and then you see that the top one is orange juice. You know, who doesn't love a glass of orange juice? Or even like eating an orange. Mm-hmm. Like, do not underestimate the power of real food.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Now, if you've done the food first, and I mean really made an effort at it, and you're still not getting those minimums, now what?
Might be time to consider supplementing. I think we've also talked about this before. I don't remember when we talked about it. I just remember talking about it. But sometimes after we've been, like if we've been restrictive in the past, or if we are struggling with a chronic issue, we can get to a point where it's hard to get back out of that hole with only foods. You know, we need so much of it to get back on track that it can be really difficult to eat that much food. So supplementation is something that you can consider. We've done a couple of episodes about supplementation. I'll link those in the show notes. Go back and re-listen to those or listen to them for the first time. Because there's a lot of things to consider with supplementation. And I would say, just as a quick note here, I'm not going to dive deep into like all the supplements you could take, but I would only say that don't go to the grocery store and just buy the first mineral or vitamin multi supplement that you find on the shelf, especially if you go there and you're like, oh, they have a gummy version. That's great. I love gummies.
That's not a great sign.
Yeah. I would say look for a whole food supplement. So what I mean by that is someone took a whole food, freeze-dried it or dehydrated it, and ground it down into a powder and then capsulized it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would consider those before doing any kind of like multi or any other form, I suppose, because that's going to be the most bioavailable for you, and it's going to just be like a concentrated form of that whole food that you just aren't able to get enough of because it's going to be so much volume. Really? Kind of distills it so that way you can take a huge dose of it without eating a gigantic plate of it.
Yeah, good examples of those are like any kind of organ meat or shellfish, like an oyster supplement, that sort of thing is usually what you're going to find. So what about greens powders then? Would that be a good way to supplement in your diet?
I think there are some considerations to make if you would like to utilize a greens powder. The first thing I would consider is what kind of added ingredients are in the greens powder to make it taste good, because I don't know if you've had greens powders before, but
I have. They taste like grass.
Yeah, so a lot of times they have to add some things to it to make it taste at least kind of decent. And then also look at how much it's actually providing you of those micronutrients per serving. We just did a quick look at one of them, and it's like the thing that it's highest in is vitamin K, which is, don't forget, a fat-soluble vitamin, so it would need some fat to be absorbed anyway, but it was only going to provide 34% of your daily value of vitamin K. So you would still need to make sure that you're eating foods that are high in vitamin K. And the same would go for the rest of the micronutrients that are in there. And then there's something to be said for the digestibility of greens. Some people their stomachs and digestive systems just aren't ready for that much greens. I'm not saying that greens are bad. I'm not saying that salads are bad. But a concentrated amount like that might wreak some havoc in your digestive tract. So I would say approach with caution, and if you can find a way to do it without a greens powder, that's probably going to be your best bet.
Good advice.
So this was just an introduction to micronutrients. We by no means did more than scratch the surface, but we just wanted to kind of like give an introduction and kind of collect some, maybe some questions or whatever you guys would like to learn more about in the future, so that way we can provide some more in-depth information in a future episode.
Yeah, this is a good time to we'll plug it again, but plug our Patreon. That if that's where we want conversations to happen, go over to on the show notes, leave us comments and questions there. That way we can actually work our way through them methodically and then spit it back out to you.
And it is a free community right now. I know a lot of people use Patreon and they have like paid tiers so you can support us. And while we would love to do that someday, right now everything is free. So it's free to join and free to ask questions. The more that you guys are on there and asking questions and building a community there, the more robust it's going to be and the more value we can add to you guys there. And before you go, while we're on the subject, don't forget to leave a rating or review on your podcast player and share this episode with your friends, family, and like-minded community. Let's get the word out. So, Emily, what's good this week?
So what's good this week is we are coming off of just a really sucky month of up and down sickness, and I feel like one of these days I'm going to come on here and be like, what's good is nobody's sick in my house. And
It's the wrong time of the year for that.
I know. I have a wellness podcast though. But what's good is that, so a few years ago, gosh, probably 5 or more, I kind of went on an herbal deep dive, and I was learning lots of herbal things. It was like the thing that I was really focused on. I was buying a lot of bulk herbs. I was making a lot of tinctures. And, that's a real investment, like, to buy a pound of bulk herbs. It's expensive. To buy the alcohol you need to make the tincture, that's expensive. But I was like, one day I'll be really happy I did this. And sure enough, here I am, not really able to do much else besides kind of just hang in there. And I have all these tinctures and stuff that are just waiting there for me.
Thanks, Past Emily.
I know. Past Emily really cared about future Emily and made a cute little apothecary. So I would just like to say to my husband, it paid off. It was worth it. We use it. How about you? What's good this week?
A couple episodes ago, we just mentioned in passing that it feels like Redwall fall. And do you know what I did? I went home and I found Redwall on my bookshelf and I busted it out and I've been reading Redwall.
How cozy.
And people see me reading it at work and they're like, "Are you really reading a book about a mouse?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm reading a book about a mouse."
Very cozy mouse.
Yes.
A warrior mouse.
Yes. So that's what's good this week is I'm rereading Redwall and loving it.
I love that.
Never too old for Redwall.
Perfect. Thank you for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast.
To learn more about my one-on-one packages, join my mailing list and follow me on Instagram at Kayla King Wellness.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast feed wherever you listen to podcasts. You don't want to miss an episode.
Follow us on Instagram at Good Enough Wellness Podcast to learn about upcoming episodes and join our free Patreon to interact with the Good Enough community.
The Good Enough Wellness Podcast, because good enough can be good enough.
Well, that's good enough for me.
Me too.